The Great Gatsby, Chapter 1. A New Life in the East. A new life in the East. A new life in the North. Jessica is in the North. Many years ago, my father gave me a summer advice which I have always remembered. When you are tempted to judge someone, try to remember that many people have not had the same opportunity as yourself. He didn't elaborate any further. He didn't have to. I knew exactly what he meant. We have an unspoken understanding one another. Because of his advice, I always err on the side of caution. This, in turn, caused me become known as a non-judgmental sort of character who was then subjective to the mundane conversation of a good number of individuals. I was also unfairly labeled a hallucination, and whenever I felt another was going to confine me, I would often pretend to be asleep, or just focus my attention on myself. This might privilege the village understand how to be young men, and my patience about shortcomings. I realized that there are limits. I reached the point where I just wanted everyone with the same consistent value. I didn't care what you founded upon. I just want to be free the burden of being forced to delve into the mind and hearts of others. Gatsby stood for everything I despised in life. Yet he is the only man whose problem, feelings, and emotion interested me. Gatsby was a remarkable man. He was filled with such promise or hope that I'd never seen anyone before. He possessed amazing facets for romance, and I am sure I'll never find such an enthusiasm in anyone again. Gatsby achieved great success in his life, but as you know, it took his success that destroyed him. I heard that my family descended from Dukes of Buccleuch, but it was my grandfather's brother who started my family's business. He started wholesale hardware business in Midwestern City. It has been in my family for 3 generations, and my father still runs it today. People often comment that I look like my great-uncle, but I can only compare myself a single portrait of him in Chang's my father's office. After graduating in New Haven, 1915, I fought in Great War. Despite the violence and experience during the war, I enjoyed myself and it made it very difficult for me to settle back into life in Midwest. Because this feeling, I decided to head east. I thought that when I tried my hand in the bond business, all the people I knew were doing the same thing. I thought that I too might as well try and prosper through dealing in bond. My family talked over. They were concerned and very cautious, but eventually they all agreed. My father agreed to support me financially for a year until I got on my feet. After a lot of planning and several delays, I eventually came east in 1922. For me, it was going to be a permanent move. As soon as we arrived, they set about finding some accommodation. I was used to having large amounts of space and lots of trees, so when another young man at the office suggested we share a house, I immediately agreed. He found a house to rent for $80 a month, but then he suddenly transferred to Washington. I went to her salon, a dog which ran off a few days later. I bought old dogs and hired a finished woman to cook clean for me. I felt like a lonely outsider for a while until a tail stranger stopped me in the street. He asked, "How do I get to West Egg Village?" I suddenly felt like one of the locals as I got into the destination. A new feeling to be comfortable in my surroundings came. I sat down to begin my main task of reading. I bought several volumes about finance, banking, and another subject related to my chosen field of work. I had the intention of reliving my college days when I had been well read. I even read a good number of editorial for these new news. The neighborhood which I now found myself living was one of the most spiritual community in America. On a very narrow island in New York, there are two very interesting land formations. They lie approximately 20 miles in the city. These are called the X. They are completely identical and are Roman separated by a bay. They sit in what is known as Long Island Sound. Despite being completely identical in shape and size, these two eggs share many differences. I live on the west, which I now found myself living with one of the most interesting communities in North America. On a very narrow island just east in New York, there are two very interesting land formations. They lie approximately 20 miles from the city. These are called the X. They are completely identical and are Roman separated by a bay. They sit in what is known as Long Island Sound. Despite being completely identical shape and size, these two eggs share many differences. I live on the West Egg. This is the last fashionable side, but residents are part of the new rich. These people haven't listened to become wealthy and days yet are still trying to develop their identity in this upper class. My house is right in the Egg. It is located between two very large houses. These houses are usually rented in summer in the area of $12,000 to $15,000 for the season. The house on the right is a massive structure. It looks like a hotel the building in Normandy. It was a fairly new house and the ivy was just recently covered. At the back, there is a marble swimming pool. Behind it were forests or gardens and lawn. It was in this house that Gatsby resided. Of course, I didn't know at the time. Compared to his magnificent house, the one I was living in looked like a shambles. However, I was able to overlook this point. I had a magnificent view of Long Island Sound. I could partly enjoy my neighbor's backyard, and I was loving shoulder with millionaire. All this for the bargain price only $80 a month. On a beautiful evening, I found myself driving over a crazy bay to the Canyon's house. They live on the East Egg. Across the bay, I can see the mansions which the light is sparkling in the water. It was quite a magnificent sight. Tom Buchanan lived in East Egg with his wife Daisy, who was my second cousin. I didn't know him very well, although I had attended college with Tom. After I got back from the war, I spent a couple of days with them in Chicago. Tom was a very impressive man. Back in college in New Haven, Tom had been one of the most successful and powerful college football players. He excelled, he was so great at the age of 21 that every achievement he made after almost seemed like disappointment. He also came from extremely wealthy family, and he always lived a very extravagant life. After marrying, Tom and Daisy had lived a very careful life. They traveled here and there, wherever rich people played polo. It was quite surprising when you finally decided to come and settle in East. During a telephone conversation, Daisy, she told me that they would live permanently in East. I found it difficult to believe because I could not imagine Tom being happy in one place. He lived the past few years in search of something new place with excitement is dramatic for 4 years. The evening I drove to Tom and Daisy's house is quite warm, very windy. When I arrived at their house, I was really taken aback. Tom was very wealthy, but I could not imagine the extravagant house that I drove out that evening. It was a lovely red and white Georgian colonial mansion. For about a quarter mile in front of it, lovely gardens and brick walks made the way down to the beach. It was covered in vine, and at the front there was a lying French window. They all wide open to catch the afternoon in. I pulled up the entrance, Tom was standing at the top of the veranda. He was still in his riding clothes and he stood his legs apart. He had aged since the college days, but he did not listen to side string. Under his riding clothes, he sees the powerful muscles rule. He was not about 3 years of age. His eyes, hair, and his eyes still glowed the confidence arrogance. His voice was deep and resonating. Whenever he spoke, his voice always conveyed contempt. This caused more than just a few people hate him. We were never very close in college, but despite that, I always got the impression he wanted me as more an equipment. We stood on his veranda for some time. Looking around him, he said, "This is a very nice place here." He took my arm and turned me around. We stood looking out of the ground. We looked out of the garden, which included an Italian garden, half an acre rose garden. All this is belonged to the oil man. The man, Tom told me. "Why don't you go inside now?" "Why don't you go inside now?" Tom took me through the French entrance and into a high hallway. This hallway led to a bright room lined French window. These windows were open. They were trimmed wide and contrasted to make it loud and seemed to make it all the way to the window. The wind was still quite strong, and some curtains were flapping over the wind the other window at the end of the room. I looked around and noticed that only thing the wind was not affecting was Lala's couch. Two women were sitting at the end of it, and skirts were also flapping around. They were dressed in white and looked like a balloon that mercilessly tossed around by the wind. I stood there watching everything being blown around the tent with the thundering sound of Tom closed the window. The track wind is forced to stop in not finally. Everything in the room became calm. I was now able to examine two women more carefully. I had not met the younger of the two. She was completely stretched on her end of the couch. She was completely still, and with her chin propped a little, gave no hint that she had seen me. I was taken aback by her inattention, and I mumbled an apology for disturbing her. Daisy was the other normal couch. She laughed a little and leaned forward. I laughed a little too and came further into the room. "I'm so glad to see you," she exclaimed. She came over to me with a charming laugh. She took my hand and looked into my face, giving me the figurine that there was no one else on earth that she'd rather see. she whispered to me very quietly, but the family name of the girl behind us was Baker. These were named for whispering things quietly. I even been told she did it because she wanted people to lean in toward her. I looked behind Daisy and saw Miss Baker nodding in agreement ever so slightly. Again, having felt out this stern mumbled apology. I looked at Daisy again, and she started asking me questions. She radiated that night, but she had a sad loveliness about her. Her eyes sparkled, and she spoke in an excited way that man could never forget. Her voice sang and compelled men to listen. In an unspoken tone, her voice hinted at exciting things she had experienced, and suggested that more excitement was on the horizon. I stopped over in Chicago for a while before I came east, I told her. All of your friends and family send their love to you. Do they miss me? She cried. Of course they do. Everyone is mourning. Everyone painted left wheel on the back of their car black as a sign of mourning. You should hear them crying for you along the North Shore too, I said. Tom, let's go back there. We should go there tomorrow. Would you like to see baby? She asked me. Of course, I love to see her, I said. She's sleeping at the moment. She's freed. Have you ever seen her? She asked. No, not once. Tom, who seemed bored by the conversation, came over and put his hand on my shoulder. So, what are you going to do, Nick? He asked me. I'm going to be working with Bond. Which company? He asked. I told him instead, but I never heard of them. I was a bit offended by this, so I said, well, if you stay in East for any period of time, you will certainly hear of them. We certainly stay in East now, Tom said. As he spoke, he looked over Daisy, waiting for her reaction. We'd be stupid one to leave anyone else. Absolutely. It was Miss Baker who said that. She had not said anything the whole time I was there, and her contribution to the conversation took me quite by surprise. This sudden news of her comment surprised her because she yawned, got up and said, Steph, I don't know how long I've been lying on the couch. Don't blame me, said Daisy. I've been trying to get you up. You could go to New York all afternoon. Just then, Sergeant came out with a tray of 4 cocktails. No, thank you, said Miss Baker. I'm in training. Tom is surprised by this. You are? I can't believe that you ever getting anything done. He took a drink and emptied it as if it were in mouth full of water. I looked at Miss Baker and wondered what it was she needed to get done. She was a very attractive girl. She was very petite, with very good posture. She tended through her shoulders back. She had gray eyes. She looked at me curiously. I suddenly realized that I had seen her before. I understand you live in West Egg, she said. There was undertone of disapproval in her voice. I'm no person there. I haven't met anyone there yet, I said. You must know Gatsby, she said. Daisy interrupted at that point. Gatsby? What Gatsby? She demanded. Dinner was not before I got the chance to say that he was my neighbor. Tom took my arm, pushed me through to where dinner is being served. The two men walked ahead of us and we went out on the veranda. The sun was setting, a full candle flickered on the table. Of course, the wind has completely eased by this time. We don't need candles yet, commented Daisy, who put them out immediately. Did you know that it will be the longest day of the year in about 2 weeks? She asked. I always wait for the longest day of the year and miss it. Will Shipling do something on that day? Said Miss Baker, yawning. Good idea. What should we do? Daisy asked. I was about to say about something, but then Daisy quickly said, Look, I hurt my finger. Look at her finger, which is black and blue. You did, Tom, she tears. I know it was an accident. You still did it. That's my punishment for murdering huge, hulking, physical sample of a... Even if you made it jokingly, I hate the word hulking, said Tom. Hulking, exclaimed Daisy. Exclaimed Daisy. Da, 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 da. The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby. Chapter 2. Rumor's Mistress. The Rumor's Mistress. While we're ready for dinner to be served, Daisy and Miss Baker were occasionally laughing into their own private conversation. Although they accepted present of Tom and me, Daisy believed to entertain us, and they hardly responded to our letters to entertain them. They seemed to casually accept the evening when come to the boat. This was quite different to attitude in the West. Evenings were usually to their dread evening ever coming to an end. I feel quite uncivilized during lunch, Daisy, I said to her. I wish you would talk about more every topics. Tom butted in before Daisy even got a chance to respond. Civilization just fallen apart, Tom said abruptly. Have you ever heard of the Arthur Gardner? He wrote a book titled The Rise of the Color Empire. Tom spoke quite loudly, which surprised me. No, I haven't read it, I told him. You should. The writer based the whole book on science. He says the white race must be careful or be taken over by all the other race, Tom said. Tom liked to read a lot of books of philosophical subjects. It's very deep, Daisy said. Tom looked at Daisy with surely noise inside. No, his book is scientific. The writer has all worked out. He clearly demonstrates how it would be possible for other races to rule and dominate. We had the fight to maintain control. You have to beat them into submission. They used to refer to me at the same time. Tom continued to talk. We are not a background. You do, Nick. I do. Miss Baker doesn't serve the Daisy. It's Western civilization that creates science art. It all works together to make civilization. I looked at Tom and thought he looked a little pathetic. He was trying so hard to replace the former complacency. I was in the middle of my thought when the telephone rang. The butler went inside to answer it. Daisy took the opportunity to whisper something to me. I want to tell you a secret. It's about the butler's nun. Do you want to hear about it? she asked. It's the very reason why I came to visit, I said. He used to be a silver porter or somewhere in New York. They had a silver service for 200 people. It was a job to polish silver, but it is eventually that fact is known. Finally, he had to give up his job. I looked at Daisy and then Nigel's face was glowing. Her delicate voice almost forced me to lean in towards her. Lovato reappeared and whispered something in Tom's ear. The expression on Tom's face changed. He frowned and got up without saying the word. Daisy almost seemed to become animated by Tom's word from the table. She leaned closer to me and said, Nick, it's wonderful to have you on my table. You almost resemble Rose. Doesn't he almost look like a rose? She asked me, Miss Baker. I thought that this was a very strange thing for Daisy to say. I don't look anything like a rose. I know she was only trying to make me feel comfortable with her wanting insincerely. A few months later, she placed her neck on the table, excused herself, went inside. Miss Baker and I briefly looked at each other. I almost said something when she quickly said, Shh. We listened closely and could hear voices mumbling in the room inside. Miss Baker moved closer so that she could hear better. We can continue to listen. At one point, we could understand most of the words being said, but then it became incoherent. I decided to try and make some conversation, so I said, You mentioned Mr. Gatsby earlier. He happened to be my neighbor. I want to hear what they said, Miss Baker said. Is there any interest? I asked. You don't know? She asked, looking very surprised. I thought everyone knew. I don't know anything, I told her. Really? Tom has another woman in New York, she told me. I stared at her and questioned, Another woman? She nodded her head. She doesn't even have the menu. It's not the colored dinner time, remarked Miss Baker. Miss Baker had only just finished speaking and Tom and Daisy returned to the dinner table. Sorry for leaving you, apologized Daisy. She stepped down Miss Baker and at me. Then she said, I went outside for a minute. It's such a lovely evening. It's very romantic. I think there's a nightingale on the lawn at the moment. Tom, isn't it romantic? It's very romantic, he replied. He turned to me and said, Why don't I take you down to the stable after dinner to sip some wine? At that moment, the telephone rang. Daisy shook her head at Tom and the part of the table was forgotten. It was a very uncomfortable moment. I remembered that the candles had been lit again and I looked at everyone to avoid looking at Tom and Daisy. Even Mr. Baker, who had never seen me sit about, would not have been able to ignore the existence of the uninvited fifth guest that evening. Dinner finally came to an end, and Tom and Miss Baker walked slowly back into the house. Daisy and I walked around outside the house along a maze connecting veranda. We stopped the porch in the front where we ended up sitting on the wicker settee. Daisy leaned forward and put a chin in her hand like she was pondering some great mystery. I knew that feeling. It must be in Tom well. So I decided to ask her some question about her young daughter. She suddenly spoke, however. We are cousins. We don't even know each other very well. Why didn't you come to my wedding? She asked. I was still overseas because of the war, I said. I suppose I've been having a terrible time. I've become very skeptical about absolutely everything, she told me. I could certainly understand why she felt angry. I waited for her to continue to speak, but she didn't. I made another attempt asking her about her little girl. She does everything every other child does, I suppose. She talks now. I guess she eats everything too, I said. Yes, she does, Daisy told me. Can you imagine what I said when she was born? Do you want me to tell you? Yes, please tell me, I said. It will show you how cynical I am of everything in my now. I had no idea of where Tom was when she was born. She was only about an hour old when I woke up. I asked the nurse whether my child was a boy or a girl, and she told me it was a girl. I started to cry. There we were, I said. I have a daughter. I hope she's really quiet, stupid fool. That's the best thing for a woman to be in this world. I hope she's the gorgeous fool. Everything is right right off, Paige said. I know that everyone feels the same way. People at dance country do anyway. I've been to all of them, and everyone feels the same way about things I do. I've seen everything and done everything. She let out loud, filled with original. God, I was sophisticated. I'm so sophisticated at that. She stopped speaking, and it's only then that I realized she was being sarcastic. I suddenly felt uncomfortable, and that the evening had already a plan to extort some sympathetic feeling from me. I looked at her, and suddenly a sneer appeared on her face. It was like she emphasized her association to some secret organization, something. Daisy and I eventually drifted into the room at Tom Miss Baker's work. They were each at the end of the wrong couch. She was reading to Tom the Saturday Evening Post. Her voice was both melodious and confident. Just behind them, a lamp gave off a lovely light which reflected the lovely autumn tone in her hair. As she turned the page of the paper, the movement her muscle also accentuated light. Daisy and I walked into the room, and she immediately held a pen, signaling for us to be quiet. Soon after, she said, "To be continued the next installment." While she threw the magazine down, she adjusted her position and then stood up. "It's already 10 o'clock. It's time to this girl to go to bed. Jordan has a match tomorrow," explained Daisy. "She's going to play in the tournament at Westchester." Now I suddenly knew why she looked so familiar to me when I first saw her. "Oh, you're Jordan Baker," I said. I had seen her face on many magazines before. Her cynical yet very pleasant face has been out of me many times. I've seen a picture of magazines such as Hot Spring, Palm Beach, Desfield. I also heard some stories about her. One of them was not flattering at all, but I couldn't remember at all what it was about. "Make sure we're 8, all right?" she said. "If you get you up, I'll get up for sure. Good night. Miss Carraway, it was nice to meet you. See you again. You must definitely will. I think you're wonderful if I arrange a marriage between you two. Why don't you come over with Nick? I'll accidentally lock you two up. We'll push you out into the sea. You know, work you together, that kind of thing. Good night." Miss Baker said again in the hallway. I didn't hear what you said. She's a good girl, Tom commented. I'm surprised there for roam around the country that she does. Daisy looked at him angrily and said, Who do you mean by they? Her family. Her family canceled arm born centuries ago. You need to worry because Nick is here now. You look after her, won't you, Nick? She's going to get lots of time here during this summer. I think it will do her the world good. Tom and Daisy looked at each other. I sensed an awkward feeling and quickly said, Is Miss Baker from New York? No, she isn't. She's new there. You spent our girlhood there together. Our beautiful wine. So when you are on the veranda, did you fright discussion together? Tom asked Daisy. Daisy looked at me and asked, Did we? We talked about all such a thing. I think at one point we even talked about Nordic faith. You know how easy it is to move from one subject to, you can't believe everything ever tells you, Nick. Tom said to me. I haven't heard anything at all, I said to him in light-hearted fashion. I think about time that I'd be going home. We all stood up together, walked me out of the house. They opened the door while Susie out. I turned engine on and just then Daisy called out, Wait! She came rushing to me. I want to ask you something. It's really quite important. Tom and I heard that you're engaged to a girl and you're still out there, Daisy said. Yes, we were the same thing. You're engaged? Tom asked. Not at all. It's only a rumor. I'm too poor for anyone to interest in having me, I said. How is that possible? We hardly meet people. When you hear the same thing from so many different people, it must be true, said Daisy. I knew exactly what they were talking about. The truth was that I was never even close to being engaged, but it's amazing how quickly gossip spread, and there was one main reason that I decided to move east. It was a situation that I felt torn about. I didn't want to stop spending time with a good friend because of rumor, but I also didn't want to rumor into getting married. I almost felt that Tom and Daisy's interest made them seem almost too much less rich. I even thought move by their concern interested me. Despite that, I felt some scorn for them. I knew the right thing for they to do would be to take daughter and leave Tom. Surely there was no plan at all to do that. And the fact that Tom had moved to New York did not come at all as a surprise. In fact, I was far more surprised in Tom's interesting book. It almost seemed like you were trying to fill some voice inside. I drove away, left them legs trapped in a house. I drove along, passed by a house in garage which all seemed to have a new red gas pump in front. The summer moved this fall. You know, it was splendid glory and shining rays over everything I passed, allowing me to see everything almost as clearly as every day. I arrived home, loaded my doors into the garage where I kept it. I decided to sit outside for a while. The fierce wind which blew so strongly a few hours earlier had completely disappeared. All that was left now is the wind raised the moon, which lit the ear as it rested on the orchestral sound of a thousand frogs. In distant sight of the line of cats moving through the night. I turned my head to watch it travel closer to its destination. And then I noticed that my neighbor had appeared 50 feet in front of me. He had suddenly appeared from out here's enormous mansion and was now standing on his lawn with his hand in his pocket, looking out into the night sky, which was peppered with a million twinkling stars. He was pondering, well, something. I had never seen the man before, but there was something about it indicated that he was Mr. Gatsby, who would not come out calculate how much that star with the sky. He actually, I thought that my color too. Miss Baker had at least named it even I thought that it would be a good reason for me to speak to him. However, before I had a chance to say anything, this Gatsby movement and all indicated to me, he preferred to me interrupted. He stretched the giant on even a distance. It seems like he was trembling. I looked out towards the ocean, where twisted onto. I saw very faint light and thought that it could be the light at the end of the pier. I turned my gaze back toward Gatsby had been standing, but he has disappeared. The Great Gatsby. Chapter 3. A New York Apartment. A New York apartment. On the road between West Egg and New York, there is a section in the meets the railroad. We'll know the side by side called the mile. The section is on the dead, least the miserable area. The smoke which poured from the train is passed through it gets trapped in the valley and left an ashen gray earth through the valley. Everything is gray. The house is gray, the trees, car, people, and mountain all gray. This valley also has a disgusting gray river which runs through it. Barges pass along its river, causing many trains to soak in the mud and the drawbridges lifted to the barges path. Because of this, many travelers are forced to feast their eyes upon the fresh surrounding outside. Sometimes this part in journeys can last around 30 minutes. It was because of this hot that I first had a chance to Tom Buchanan's mistress. Everywhere I went, everyone was resolute that the fact he hasn't. He was quite well not defronted. Those associated with him arose offended if they turn up in public with her, usually in popular cafe and restaurant. He would then leave her at the table and walk around chatting and laughing although he knew. I have to admit we were really curious to find what she looked like, although I had no desire to actually meet her. However, I had no choice in the matter. I did meet her at once when I on the train which traveled through that oppressed scenery one day and Tom. We were going to New York together and we stopped at the issue on the way. He jumped out of his seat, took me by the arm and said, "I really want to be my girl." He didn't seem happy and sense of shame he was cheating on my cousin. He also got himself pretty drunk at lunchtime, which you call thoroughly insensitive. He was so intent on having me near his girl, they almost seemed to become by one. I found it extremely arrogant to him to thought that there is nothing else out of Pearl to do on a Sunday afternoon. After we got off the train, we climbed over a row of fencings, walking toward the town, which looked much like Westland. The first building came into sight, a small black yellow brick shop. One of the shops had a sign out the front saying for rent. Another was alright dress letter and sold as a garage. It had a sign at the front which said, "Repair, Joe's Bills and Car's Button Sold." We walked inside. The garage looked very similar to the outside around we had just left. It was bare and depressing. There was only a dust-covered rack sitting inside in the corner. I almost felt that the garage must just be a front from something else. Perhaps a bar where Bill was worked. The owner of one mirror. He came in waving his dirty hand with a cloth. He was a blond, fair-skinned man who looked like he lacked any sense of spirit. A sparkle of hope flashed into through his eyelids in sending his garage. "Listen, old spur, how are you?" "Great," Tom is sparking the phone in a friendly manner. "How's business?" "It's not too bad." He looked in a convincing tone. "Where am I going, the owner of that car?" "마음이 왜 Shibboleth Tom said, "That man of yours sure works slow." commented Wilson. "No, he doesn't," snapped Tom. "And we can't wait. I'm sure we'll be a several hours long." "I didn't mean Ab," Wilson said quickly. Tom wasn't listening, however. He was looking around impatiently. A few minutes later, the sound of footsteps and the woman quickly entered. She was quite a solo prop woman in silvery, but she carried a sign in a very attractive manner. She was wearing a dark full credits instead, and this face of Barbara's was very plain in the hint of beauty. Despite this, her searching about each work extremely. She smiled, walked to her, completely ignored her husband. He's not being excused. "Shoot, Tom," he said, with the eyes in her lips. The enthused husband very lawfully said, "Bring some chair, they can sit down." "Of course," said Wilson. Sick went up to a chair. He disappeared in the eating action color surrounding. "Is our more closely, Tom," he said. "I want to see you get on the next train." She agreed. Loads around lever next to the newsstand. She moved away as Wilson came back with his chair. We left immediately, went up to meet Wilson's wife. We wheels were down the road. "This is a shocking place, isn't it?" said Tom. "It's the worst ever." I agree. "She needs rather this place," Tom said. "What does husband think about it?" I asked. "He goes up to see her sister in New York," Tom told me. "That man is so dumb. He no idea anything." Eventually came and set off to New York, although Mrs. Wilson in the car in June. At least a takeoff to school and East Egger might be around. Before she had left, Miss Wilson had came to dress. She was no one glamorous, eccentric, or womanly thing. We got off the train, met at the newsstand. You should buy a copy Town Tattle and the moving picture magazine. We also stopped drugstore and station with a cream bottle of perfume. With Dustin went to catch a taxi. She bought left 4, drove their parents chose 11 the colored one which you will climb into. We drove along New York sunshine, but it wasn't long before she tapped on grass and said, I want one of those guns. I want to have it my apartment. It's nice to have them around. The taxi pulled over to an old man's sitting. He had a basket next to him and was filled with puppy in the nondescript nature. The man walked over to the taxi and Mrs. Wilson asked, What sort of dog are there? All different kind. What sort do you want? I want one of those dogs that police use. Do you have any of them? Mrs. Wilson asked. The man looked at the basket, put his hand and pulled a puppy out. That's not a police dog, said Tom. No, not a police dog. It's a little air deer. Look at its coat. Look at how sick it is. It'll never get sick or cold like that. The man said, rubbing his hand up and down along the dog's coat. I really love the dog. It's a real cutie. How much is it? Mrs. Wilson asked. It'll cost you $10, the man replied. The man gave the dog Mrs. Wilson. It settled down into a lap and Mrs. Wilson caressed its coat. Is it a boy or a girl? She asked. That dog's a boy, the man told her. No, it's not. It's a bitch, Tom contradicted. Here's a $10. Now go and buy another $10 with it. The taxi drove off and continued on her way. It was very sunny, sleepy Sunday afternoon, and it almost seemed like we were in the country. I half expected to see a flock of sheep somewhere on the street, New York. We arrived on Fifth Avenue, I said. I'm going to leave you here and be on my way. No, I don't think so. You might come to my mother we already sent you. Don't, Tom said. Come on up, said Merle. Oh, call my sister. Her name is Catherine. And the people that know say that she is very beautiful. I don't know, I said. The stick didn't start from the driver, just continued on. 158th Street, and driver stopped from the wrong right apartment. Mrs. Wilson got out, looked around her. She had just arrived home, collected her dog and the purchases, and considered went to the apartment. As we were going up in the elevator, she said, I've got to call my sister, and I think I'm going to ask Mickey to come as well. We went right up to the top floor. The apartment is made up of a small lounge room, small dining room, and this small bathroom. The lounge room is congested by tapestry furniture which looked entirely out of place in the small room. The only picture on the wall was a picture of an oversized tent. There was a table in the middle of the room, several old copies torn, tether lying on it. There was also a copy of Simon called Peter here too. The first thing Mrs. Wilson did was attend to the boy. She asked the elevator boy to get a box of straw and milk for it. He went off there reluctantly. He came back with the box, milk, and he also picked up some dry dog's food. While all of this is happening, Tom went to get a large bottle of whiskey from a cupboard somewhere. There only been 2 times when I got drunk in my life, and that afternoon was one of them. Most of the events of that afternoon are distant haze in my memory. I still remember Mrs. Wilson sitting on Tom's lap as she spoke several people on the telephone. At one point, I wanted to buy a cigarette for the corner drugstore. When I came back from Ireland, they vanished. In my newfound solitude, I sat down on a chair in the lounge room, tried to read a copy of Simon called Peter. With the effects of the alcohol stirring everything, the book didn't make any sense to me at all. Tom and Mother eventually restored to me in time to greet the guests Mother had invited. After being lubricated with alcohol, Mrs. Wilson and I started to call each other by our first name. Mother's sister, Catherine Wright. She looked about 30 with her slender, with great hair, very fair, powdery complexion. She walked to the apartment and looked around with such an attitude that I thought she might have owned it. I asked her this, she just laughed at me. Not at all, she said. I left the girlfriend in the hotel. The Mackeys also arrived around the same time as Catherine. Mr. Mackey was very ceremonious, very feminine in Tennessee. He had a very obviously just shaved before coming because he still had a small round shaving in his neck. He greets everyone very respectfully, told me he worked in an artistic room. I later found out he was a photographer. His wife was rather known. She had a loud appearance in both and is mixed to being handsome or horrible. Did you know my husband fought at me 127 times? She said to me very elegantly. Mrs. Wilson now had changed to dress once more. She changed into a cream chiffon dress and lustre to move up the room. It almost seemed like her personality changed with the clothing that she wore. When I first saw her in blue dress, she had an air about tolerance about her. Now in cream chiffon dress, she had a new grace self-importance. The way she moved about the room spoke almost demanded that everyone paid attention to her. Catherine, you have to be careful of people all the time. Catherine, you have to be careful about all the time. She advised her sister, all people think about money. They will cheat you out of the matter they can. I had a woman come here to look at my feet the other week. When it came time to pay her, you really thought she preferred surgery and beer or something. Who was that woman? Asked Mr. Mackey. Mrs. Eberhard. She looks at people in their own home. Replied Mr. Wilson. I think that is a lovely dress you're wearing. Complimented Mrs. Mackey. Mrs. Wilson just 300 years since you have. It's just something I have run around that I gain to every once in a while when I don't care about how I look, she said. But the dress are really stunning on you. Continued Mrs. Mackey. I think my husband to take a picture of it and he'll be able to tell you how to pose perfectly. It will turn out wonderful. We are looked at Mrs. Wilson and imagined how she would look in the photograph. She smiled backwards very brightly. Mr. Mackey looked at her intently and said, I will need to change the light to bring out the best of your features. Oh no, changing will like do no good at all, exclaimed Mr. Mackey. I think it's silent to husband, we all continued to look at Mrs. Mackey. Tom Young stood up. We need to give her another drink, Tom said. No, we need some rice and mineral water. I told the folks that it's so annoying. You have to keep chasing after people tell them to do anything. She looked at me, laughed, and then pranced with the dog, kissing me. I've spent some time Long Island doing some work here. Miss Mickey told me I got 2 months stories from downstairs and no more on the point to go and get a month of all the scene. Are you from Long Island? Catherine asked me. Yes, from West Egg, I told her. I was their party guest because not too long ago. Do you know him? She asked. He's my neighbor. I've heard people say he got his money because he's a nephew or something. Kinds of name. I found him very intimidating. I wouldn't have wanted to be in his bed, I said. Our conversation was then interrupted by Mrs. McKee who said, why don't you take a picture of the gathering? Miss McKee simply nodded his head. If I could get permission, I'll not do more along Island. I just need entry, he said. Why don't you ask Mom? She can get you a little introduction. Come into town. What are you talking about? Asked Mom. You can introduce Mr. McKay to your husband. He'll be ready somewhere. Just imagine going to be worse than a gasoline pump. It will be really curb active, said Tom with a reason. Catherine then whispered to me, both Tom and Laura hate the people they're married to. They can't stand that. Really? I said. Can't stand that. Reading aloud. Read aloud. 120 pages. Kind of Pomodoro method to read aloud. Carefully on guard against its gaiety. Is it English? Oh. Just keep going. Let's get out, whispered Jordan, after somehow wasteful and inappropriate half an hour. This is much too polite for me. We got up and she explained that we were going to find the host. I had never met him, she said, and it was making me uneasy. The undergraduate nodded in a cynical melancholy way. The bar, where we glanced first, was crowded, but Gatsby was not there. She couldn't find him from the top of the steps, and he wasn't on the veranda. On a chance we tried an important-looking door and walked into a high Gothic library, paneled with covered English oak and probably responsed, complete from some ruin of seas. A stout, middle-aged man with enormous owl-eared spectacles was sitting somewhat drunk on the edge of a great table, staring with unsteady contraction at the shelves of books. As we entered, he wheeled excitedly around and examined Jordan from head to foot. What do you think? He demanded impetuously. About what? He waved his hand toward the bookshelves. About that, as a matter of fact, you needed to bother to ascertain. I ascertained their rear. The books? He nodded. Absolutely the rear. Had pages and everything. I thought they were a nice, durable cardboard. Matter of fact, they're absolutely real. Pages, and here, let me show you. Taking our skepticism for granted, the rushed to the bookcase and returned with volume 1 of the Studart lectures. See, he cried triumphantly. It's a bona fide piece of printed matter. If forgive me, this follows a regular Belasco. It's a trumpet. What thoroughness! What realism! Know when to stop to. Didn't cut the pages, but what do you want? What do you expect? He snatched the book from me and replaced it hastily on its shelf, noting that if one brief breeze was removed, the whole library was liable to collapse. Who brought you? He demanded. Or did you just come? I was bored. Most people were bored. Who brought you? I was brought. Most people were brought. Jordan looked at him utterly, cheerfully, without answering. I was brought by a woman named Roosevelt. He continued, Miss Claude Roosevelt, do you know her? I met her somewhere last night. I've been drunk for about a week now, and I thought it might sober me up to sit in a library. Has it? A little bit. I think I can't tell yet. I've only been here an hour. Did I tell you about the books? They're real. You told us. We shook hands with him gravely and went back outdoors. There was dancing now on the canvas in the garden. Old men pushing young girls backward in internal glanceless circles, superior couples holding each other total sleep, fashionably, and keeping in the corners, and a great number of singing girls dancing individualistically or relieving the orchestra for a moment of the burden of the banjo or the traps. By midnight, the hilarity had increased. A celebrated tenor had sung in Italian, and a notorious contralto had sung in jazz. In between the numbers, people were doing stunts all over the garden, while happy, vivacious bursts of laughter rose toward the summer sky. A pair of stage twins, who turned out to be the girls in yellow, did I baby act in costume, and champagne was served in glasses bigger than finger bowls. In the moon had risen higher, and flaming in the sounds was a triangle of silver skulls, trembling a little to the sniff, tiny drip of the banjos on the lawn. I was still with Jordan Baker. We were sitting at a table with a man of about my age and a rowdy little girl who gave way upon the slightest provocation to uncontrollable laughter. I was enjoying myself now. I have taken two finger bowls of champagne, and the scene had changed before my eyes into something significant, elemental, and profound. All at a lull in the entertainment, the man looked at me and smiled. "Your face is familiar," he said politely. "Wasn't you in the first division during the war?" "Why, yes, I was in the 2080 infantry. I was in the 60s until Jane 1918. I knew I've seen you somewhere before." We talked for a moment about some wet, grey little villages in France. Evidently, he lived in this big vicinity, for he told me that he had just bought a hydroplane and was going to try it out in the morning. "Want to go with me, old sport? Just near the shore along the Sound? What time?" "Any time that suits you best." "Any time? What time?" "Any time that suits you best." Anytime, give way. Anytime that suits you best. It was on a tip of my tongue to ask his name. It was on my tip of my tongue to ask his name when Jordan looked around and smiled. Having a gay time now? She required. Much better. I turned again to my new acquaintance. This is unusual pretty for me. I haven't even seen the host. I live over there. I waved my hand at the individual hedge in the distance, and this man Gatsby sent over his traveler with an invitation. For a moment he looked at me as if he failed to understand. I'm Gatsby, he said suddenly. Suddenly? What? I exclaimed. Oh, I beg your pardon. I thought you knew all the sport. I'm afraid I'm not a very good host. He smiled understandingly, much more than understandingly. It was one of those rare smiles with a quality of internal resonance in it that you may come across 4 or 5 times in life. It faced or seems to face the whole internal world for an instant, and then concentrated on you with an irresistible produce in your favor. It understood you just so far as you wanted to be understood, believed in you as you will like to believe in yourself, and assured you that it had precisely the impression of you that at your best you hope to convey. Precisely at the point it vanished. Precise at the point it vanished, and I was looking at an elegant young roughneck, a year or two over 30, whose elaborate formality of speech just missed being observed. Sometime before he introduced himself, I've got a strong impression that he was picking his word with care. Almost at the moment when Mr. Gatsby identified himself, a butler hurried toward him with the information that Chicago was calling him on the wire. He excused himself with a small bow that included each of us in turn. "If you want anything, just ask for me, old Spot," he urged me. "Excuse me, I will rearrange you later." When he was gone, I turned immediately to Jordan, concentrated to assume her of my surprise. I had expected that Mr. Gatsby would be a florid and corpulent person in his middle years. "Who is he?" I demanded. "Do you know?" "He's just a man named Gatsby." "Where he's from, I mean, and what does he do?" "Now you start on the subject," he answered it with a wan smile. "Well, he told me once he was an Oxford man." A dim background started to take shape behind him, but at her next remark it faded away. However, I didn't believe it. "Why not?" "I don't know," she insisted. "I just don't think he went there." Something in her tone reminded me of the other girls. "I think he killed a man and had the effort of stimulating my curiosity." I would have accepted without question the information that Gatsby sprang from the swamp of Louisiana or from the lower east side of New York. That was comprehensible. But young men didn't, at least in my provincial inexperience. I believed they didn't drift coolly out of now here and buy a place along Island Sound. Anyhow, he gave large parties," said Jordan, changing the subject within the urban distaste for the concrete. "And I like large parties. They are so intimate. As small parties here isn't any privacy." There was the boom of a bassing drum, and the voice of the orchestra leader rang out suddenly above the echolala of the garden. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "at the request of Mr. Gatsby, we are going to play for you Mr. Baldy Miller Tostoff's latest work, which are attracted too much attention at Carnegie's Hall last May. If you read the papers, you know there was a big sensation." He smiled with jovial condescension and add some sensation. Whereupon everybody laughed. The piece is new. He concluded lustily as Balladeer Tolstoy's jazz history of the world. The nature of Mr. Tolstoy, a composition idled me, because just as it began, my eyes fell on Gatsby, standing alone on the marble steps and looking from one group to another with approving eyes. His tanned skin was drawn attractively tight on his face, and his short hair looks as thought it was trimmed every day. I could see nothing sinister about him. I wondered if the fact that he was not drinking helped to set him off from his guest, for it seems to me that he grew more correct as the flattener hilarity increased. When time's up, wow, so cool, time flies as an arrow. By the flash. 그럼 just middle of page 134. 14 page for 25 minutes. Not bad, but not good. Move chop. Off from his gesture, for it seemed to me that he grew more correct as he friendner how hilarity increased. When his jazz history of the world was over, girls were putting their hands on men's shoulders in a puppyisty, convivial way. Girls were swooning backward playfully into men's arms, even into groups, knowing that someone would arrest their falls. But no one swooned backward on Gatsby, and no French Bob touched Gatsby's shoulder, and no singing quatrains were faunted for Gatsby's head for one link. I beg your pardon. Gatsby Bottled was suddenly standing beside us. Miss Baker, he required. I beg your pardon, but Miss Gatsby would like to speak to you alone. With me? She exclaimed in surprise. Yes, madam. She got up slowly, raising her eyebrows at me in astonishment, and followed his bottle toward the house. I noticed that she wore her evening dress. All her dresses like sports clothes. There was a jauntiness about her movements, as if she had first learned to walk upon golf courses on clean, crisp mornings. I was alone, and it was almost 2. For some time, confused and intriguing sounds had issued from a long, many windowed room which overhung the terrace, eluding John, eluding Cassia.